Welcome back. Before we dive in, let me ask you something. Why do so many AI projects fail? Not because of bad models, but because of bad data. That's what this video is all about. We're going to explore why data governance sits right at the heart of AI governance. I'll walk you through how data quality, lineage, and classification work together to keep your AI trustworthy. We'll look at the full data lifecycle from collection all the way to disposal. Then, we'll get into something every organization worries about bias and how you detect and fix it. We'll cover the metrics that tell you whether your data is actually healthy. And finally, we'll tackle the legal side GDPR, cross border transfers, and the documentation auditors will ask for. Think of this video as the foundation. Get data governance right, and everything else in your AI program becomes so much easier. So let's begin. Let me start with a phrase you've probably heard garbage in, garbage out. In the AI world, I'd update that slightly. Garbage in, governance risk out. Here's what I mean. Your AI system is only ever as good as the data feeding it. If that data is messy, biased, or incomplete, your model will faithfully learn those flaws and repeat them at scale. Imagine a hiring AI trained on years of biased decisions. It doesn't fix the bias, it automates it. And here's the part people miss. When AI makes a privacy mistake, it isn't just an IT hiccup anymore. It becomes a regulatory violation, the kind that brings fines and headlines. I once saw a team treat a data leak as a technical bug until the regulator called. That's why ISO 42001, specifically Annex A.8.3, requires formal data management controls, not suggestions, controls. So when we say data governance is a pillar of AI governance, we mean the whole structure rests on it. Weak data foundation and everything above it wobbles. So how do we actually build this foundation? Let me break it into 4 pieces that work together. First, data quality management. We're checking that data is accurate, complete, consistent, and timely. Think of it like ingredients in a kitchen. Even a great chef can't save a dish made with spoiled ingredients. Second, data lineage. This is your ability to trace where data came from and how it was transformed along the way. When a regulator asks, where did this come from, you need an answer. Third, data classification. Not all data is equal. You categorize it by sensitivity, by usage restrictions, and by regulatory status, so the right protections apply automatically. And fourth, and this is the one people get wrong most often, privacy requirements. You apply privacy from the moment of collection, not bolted on later as an afterthought. Here's why that matters. Retrofitting privacy is like trying to add a foundation after you've built the house. Painful, expensive, and often impossible. Let's follow a piece of data on its journey through an AI system, because data has a life cycle just like anything else. It starts with collection. Before you gather anything, you confirm your lawful basis, and where consent is required, you actually obtain it. Skipping this step is where so many organizations stumble. Next comes preparation. This is all your pre-processing, cleaning, transforming, reshaping, and here's the rule: document it. Every transformation should be traceable, because if you can't explain how raw data became training data, you've lost control. Then, storage. The data needs to be encrypted, access controlled, and given a defined retention period. Notice that word, defined. Finally, disposal. When the retention period ends, you securely delete the data and keep evidence that you did. Here's a question for you. How much old training data is sitting in your organization right now with no expiry date? Don't leave it lingering indefinitely. That forgotten data is a liability waiting to happen. Now let's talk about something that keeps AI leaders up at night: bias. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Bias doesn't sneak in at just one point. It can enter at data collection, at labeling, during model design, and even at evaluation. So how do we catch it? We start with statistical tests, checking whether protected groups are fairly represented in our training data. Imagine training a facial recognition system mostly on one demographic. It'll struggle with everyone else. Then we run disparate impact testing. The question we're asking is simple. Does the AI perform equally well across different subgroups? If it works brilliantly for one group and poorly for another, that's a red flag. And once we find bias, we mitigate it. We might resample the data, reweight it, or use adversarial debiasing techniques. Whatever choice you make, document why you made it. Because when someone asks later, how did you address fairness, you want a clear, defensible answer, not a shrug. So we keep talking about data quality, but how do you actually measure it? You can't manage what you don't measure, right? Let me give you 4 practical metrics. First, completeness rate. What percentage of your required data fields are actually populated? Empty fields are silent gaps in your model's understanding. Second, accuracy rate. Of the values you have, what percentage have been verified against trusted sources? A full field with wrong data is worse than an empty one. Third, the staleness indicator. This compares the age of your training data against your model refresh cycle. Think about a fraud detection model trained on patterns from 3 years ago. Fraudsters have moved on. Has your data? And fourth, the bias index, which tracks the distributional gap across protected characteristics. Here's the value of these numbers. They turn vague worries into something you can monitor on a dashboard, set thresholds for, and act on before problems grow. Let's bring in the legal heavyweight, GDPR, and look at what matters most for AI. Start with automated decision making. Under Article 22, individuals have a right to human review of decisions made solely by automation. So if your AI rejects someone's loan, they can ask for a human to look again. Next, purpose limitation. This one trips teams up constantly. You cannot quietly reuse data for AI training beyond the purpose you originally collected it for. I worked with a team who assumed customer data was fair game for any new model. It wasn't. Then there's data minimization. Train on the minimum personal data necessary, not everything you can grab. More data isn't always better, sometimes it's just more risk. And finally, the DPIA, a data protection impact assessment. If your AI processing poses a high risk to individuals, this isn't optional, it's required. Think of it as a safety check before you build, not an apology after something goes wrong. Here's something easy to overlook. Your data might be traveling across borders without you even realizing it. AI pipelines are global. Your training data could be processed in a completely different country, and the moment it crosses a border, that jurisdiction's law applies. Let me give you a concrete case. If personal data moves from the EU to a country without an adequacy decision, you generally need standard contractual clauses in place. Now think about cloud-based AI training. Do you actually know where the compute happens and where the data physically resides? Many teams assume it's local. It often isn't. So your job is to identify exactly where everything sits, and once you've chosen a transfer mechanism, document it clearly and review it at least annually, because laws and adequacy decisions change. Here's the question to take away. If a regulator asks tomorrow where your training data lives, could you answer with confidence? Let's close this video with the part auditors love, documentation. And I'll be honest with you, this is where good intentions go to die if you're not disciplined. Here's what you need to keep. First, a data processing register, and crucially, you update it whenever your AI systems change. A register that's a year out of date is almost worse than none. Second, consent records, retained for the entire duration of processing, so you can always prove you had permission. Third, DPIA reports, maintained, reviewed, and updated whenever something material changes in your processing. And fourth, audit evidence. All these data governance records must be producible on demand. Picture this. An auditor walks in and asks for proof. The organization that can pull it up in minutes looks in control. The one scrambling through emails looks negligent. So my advice? Document as you go, not the night before the audit. Your future self will thank you.